Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host Cody Tanner. Cody, how are you on this not so great Monday, I guess?
Not so great Monday is right, James. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh did take the L yesterday. We'll get to all that crap here shortly. It's not a victory Monday this week. But in all honesty, I think there's a lot of good talking points and a lot of good things to look forward to. So we'll get to that. James, how are you doing today? How's the shoulder?
Good, man.
How's the shoulder?
It's getting there. We're getting a little better range of motion. It is extremely painful after physical therapy and all the stretching that happens. But that's just the nature of the beast with the rotator cuff repair and bicep repair all in the same thing. So it's just going to be a long road, but got to spend some time with the girlfriend this morning. So nice day.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Erica, always taking care of James over here, making sure he is up and ready to go for the podcast. James, before we get into talking Steelers stuff and Steelers news, we have two shout outs we want to give. I'm gonna let you do those. So go ahead.
Yeah, first, I just had the hankering for some really good popcorn the other day, so I went down to Pop Luck. If you're from Erie, Pennsylvania, you should be familiar with it. If you're not, they have gourmet popcorn. They're absolutely delicious. Ended up talking to Jen, the owner there, diehard Steelers fan. So, Jen, if you're listening to this episode, it was good talking to you. Look forward to talking to you again. Go Steelers, and hopefully we get that win next time. But check out Pop Luck. Their popcorn is incredible. Also, a shout out to Bob Ranson out in East Springfield, new listener of ours, friend of my parents. So appreciate you listening, Bob.
Yeah, man, dude, I just keep forgetting I'm actually in Pennsylvania now. I gotta go get me some Pop Lock. Now I'm thinking about it, and my mouth's getting watery.
Dude, let me tell you, I got the peanut butter brownie with a twist. It's got pretzels, brownie bites, chunks of peanut butter and chocolate in there, and then a buffalo wing one. Jeez, man. Holy cow. Talk about incredible.
Yeah, I gotta get down there for sure. Let's talk Steelers roster moves and stuff like that real quick. Steelers did elevate running back Aaron Shamplin for the game and cornerback Thomas Graham Jr. Shamplin did getting some playing time, didn't look very good at all. We'll get to that later.
I agree.
Russell Wilson inactive, Roman Wilson inactive, Darius Rush, Jalen Warren, Alex Highsmith, Isaac Seumalo, and Michael Pruitt were all the inactives for the game. All those guys did not play. But with that being said, James, this was a rough game to start off with.
Yeah.
And I don't even know I don't want to go into the stats like we normally do right away, because I want to talk about this game a little bit. And I want to emphasize the thing that I've been saying for years. It feels like Pittsburgh has an act of not coming out of the gates ready to play football. And that's drastically what it felt like yesterday. It felt like the teams
that they lose.
Well, yeah, to a degree.
Because they were ready the first 3 weeks.
I wouldn't say they were quote unquote ready. The defense played better in the first 3 weeks. The team as a whole was still slow in most quote unquote most of their games. It just felt like there was no urgency. There was no emphasis on. I almost don't even know what the game plan was. It's just wild to see how we can go down. I mean, this is one of those games that if we go up against any top team, because I don't consider the Indianapolis Colts a top team in the AFC. If we go up against any of the top 3 teams in the AFC and we have a first quarter that's 14-0, we're not coming back. If we do that against the Bills, we're not coming back. If we do that against the Chiefs, we're not coming back. It's just unfortunate and frustrating from somebody who understands football, understands the talent, the raw talent we have on the field that maybe needs a little bit of molding or shaping or given the proper direction to. And even with the injuries we've had on the offensive line that we were just talking about before the show, this team almost pulled out an amazing comeback. If we don't start 14-0, we win this game by 2 scores, in my opinion. If we come out with any game plan, we put up 3 points in the first half.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm frustrated.
And that was a field goal right before the first half ended.
Yep.
Let's be real, right? There was like 1 second on the clock when the ball went through the uprights.
Yep.
So yeah, they came out very, very flat. I couldn't agree with you more on that. The offense was just like a disaster, completely unorganized looking. Justin Fields honestly looked terrified to be on the field in the first half. At least in the first quarter, he kind of settled down as the game went along, obviously. But I was more disappointed with the defensive front seven's effort against the run.
Yep.
And when I say that, let's call it the front six, because TJ Watt, they just ran away from him the entire game.
Or they held him on pass plays.
Yep, they double teamed him, they chipped him. New stat out by Pro Football Focus this year. They decided to start recording the chipped stat, which is when a defensive pass rusher gets chipped instead of actually double teamed.
Yep.
Because that was a big issue last year. We found out when they did the double team rate, which was one of the things that helped Myles Garrett win the defensive MVP last year, the defensive player of the year, was his double team rate, and TJ's was lower, right? Well, it turns out this year TJ was getting chipped at a rate of 44%. Nobody else in the NFL is above 19. So it's not a double team necessarily, but he's still getting two people that he has to go through in order to get to the quarterback, and at a drastically higher rate than anyone else in the league. In fact, more than double than anyone else in the league. I thought the strategy that they used those first couple of drives was solid. You know, it sucks to say that as a fan of the opposing team, but they brought out 3 wide receivers and then ran against our nickel defense.
Yep.
So they had 5 offensive linemen going against 2 defensive linemen. Nick Herbig, a very small outside linebacker, was a very difficult challenge for him going against the first round offensive tackle opposite him that he's given up 70, 80 pounds to. So that was not a favorable matchup for him. And then Larry Ogunjobi and Cameron Hayward were the defensive tackles in that first drive where we basically got stuck in the nickel defense. And they went right down the field on us. Larry Ogunjobi has never been able to handle a double team and never will be able to handle a double team.
Yep.
He's a penetration style defender. So it's just an awful situation for him to be in. And then you put Cam Hayward in a position of trying to defeat 2 or 3 blockers on every play, which, as good as Cam Hayward is, he can't do that.
No.
And Cam made a splash as the game went on, but in those first 2 drives, our run defense was pathetic, man. They just went right down the field on us. And it was just a little bit of, as a man, you need to stick your chest out and have a little pride.
Yep.
And fight harder.
Yeah.
There was not enough fight in that defense those first 2 drives, and they got walked right down the field because of it.
No, and it felt like we were in zone coverage every time and just getting picked apart. The second drive was when Anthony Richardson went out with an injury that I thought might have helped us, but then Joe Flacco came in and just tore us apart that second drive. They went up 14-0 in their first 2 drives, and you talked about the slow offensive start. The two first drives we had, the first one was stunted by a 15-yard penalty that on, I think it was Spencer Anderson on an unnecessary roughness or late hit, set us up for a 3rd and 23. Any team's going to have a tough time on 3rd and 23. And then the second drive was one of the worst 4th down play calls I've ever seen in my life. Now, we've talked a lot about the Matt Canada stuff with the passing the ball behind the line of scrimmage on 4th down when you need a yard. Yes. Arguably, what's worse than that is actually running the ball and having no lead blocker and no person behind the runner to push. We did that with Justin Fields, ran into a gap. Sure, he maybe could have got it had he just gone north and south instead of a little bit more east and west. But there was no one in front of him and no one behind him to help, which was very mind-boggling to me. Give the ball to Darnell Washington, put Najee behind him, or vice versa, and just run into the pile and push. You're going to get the first down 9 times out of 10, I promise you. It's just wild to me.
And Pittsburgh has really struggled with the tush push, which I understand why they didn't go with that concept because of it.
Yep.
It's very effective for some teams. Pittsburgh's just had a tough time with it. On that play that you didn't care for, what I didn't like about the play was less the play call and more the personnel. Ryan McCollum was the extra offensive lineman out there on that play and just completely whiffed on the linebacker. If he even gets in the way, Justin Fields easily gets the first down because that linebacker was the only one in his way. He was the only person that could stop him. And Ryan McCollum didn't even get a finger on that guy. Didn't get in his way, didn't slow him down, didn't make him juke, nothing. Just completely whiffed. And it just led me to sitting there thinking, why in the world are we running an extra offensive lineman when we're that far down the depth chart? Because at this point, James Daniels was already out of the game. So you had Mason McCormick and Spencer Anderson in there at guard. You no longer have a high-quality backup offensive lineman at that point. You just don't. Let's call it what it is. After 5 injuries so far in the season to the offensive line, 4 of which were starters, you don't have high-quality backups left anymore. So stop marching an extra offensive lineman out there if your tight ends are better at blocking than them.
Yep.
You can't do it, man.
Yeah.
You would have been better off with Rodney Williams in that situation because he would have at least got his hands on, slowed him down, and then Fields would have easily gotten that first down. Then we're having a completely different conversation because they're not starting their own possession at R39.
Yep.
That's as easy as it gets, man.
Yep. And I'm not saying that the personnel isn't an issue. I just think that on that run play, either you need on any run play, in my opinion, there should be a lead blocker. Typically, there's always one person that gets free or one person, whether it's a corner, safety, linebacker, whatever, at that second or third level, that if you take them out, the running back has a choice, right, left, straight, can get some extra yards. There was no lead blocker. There was nobody directly in front of Fields in the path that he was supposed to run. Now, McCollum also, I saw the whiff. He drastically pushed the guy in the back at the end. But even if you have that situation and Najee's in the backfield that can come up and push him, like there was just nothing there. I just thought the play call was very odd. I would have preferred them to go 4 wide and then do a run up the middle. Yeah, like it just felt very wrong, very bad. The first 4 drives of Pittsburgh's game were just horrid. The third drive was a third down pass that was batted down at the line. It was 3 and out. It was, it's just unfortunate that the pass was batted down. I don't think it was going to be completed anyways. Pat Freiermuth was very covered on that. And then that 4th drive was the Pickens fumble because he's just running around holding the ball out here. Like, it's just mental mistakes that could be very easily fixed. We should have left that first half with 20 points. Easy. Yeah. Easy 20 points.
And mistakes like that George Pickens fumble, Cody, is enough to make somebody want to drink, man. So not that that's what I'm doing right now.
It's an energy drink.
Just the energy drink.
I got my coffee. Oh, my Lanta. I overslept today.
In the show. So there it is. There are 2 reasons. Now, this is a Bill Belichick thing that I agree with very much so. There are 2 situations where you should extend the ball as an offensive player. One is on 4th down when you're trying to get the first down.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is when the time is running out on the clock and you're trying to get a touchdown. Yep. If it is not either one of those situations, you should not be extending the ball. He was about 6 or 7 yards past the first down marker. He had the first down. He was still 5 or 6 yards short of the end zone. There was no reason to be extending that ball to try to get 1 extra yard. And because of doing it, that's why he fumbled. So it's just a situational thing that I feel like it happened because of George's high effort. George has such a huge focus right now in trying to get yards after the catch because that was the big knock against him his first year. He had a big improvement on his second year. He's trying to take it to the next step this third year so that when this season ends, Pittsburgh will look at him and say, you want $30 million a year? No problem. You're getting it. You're number 1.
Yep.
I get it. So he's trying to take it up to the next level, and effort is a very big part of that. Effort has not been a problem for him, but he's got to be a little bit smarter in that particular situation. In the end, this was a great game from George Pickens.
It was. Oh my gosh, it was. Other than the fumble.
Other than that fumble, it was a fantastic game for George Pickens.
And I don't blame this game on him at all, to clarify.
If we get a touchdown on that drive, we win the game.
Yeah. I mean, and everyone can say, there was a whole game left after that drive. Yes, but that changes the momentum. That changes the landscape. That changes everything. Even on the first drive, the first play of the game on defense, Joey Porter could have got a pick. It was so close. Mm-hmm. Even
in the end zone too.
Yeah. In the end zone as well.
So you're allowing a touchdown to happen because you did not get the interception.
Yep.
Got to make those plays. And that's been a struggle so far this year. We're seeing, like last week, we saw Patrick Queen have one hit him in the hands. We saw Dante Jackson this year have one hit him in the hands. You got to catch these balls. You got to get these turnovers over and over. We talk about it every week. Got to win the turnover battle. When you lose the turnover battle, you almost always lose the game.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of what happened here, right? We lost the turnover battle. We lost the game. When it's that close, 27-24, you can't lose the turnover battle, man.
No, and you process even if you have that touchdown. I mean, that changes it to 31-27. You know, it's a different game.
It's a victory Monday.
It is a victory Monday. So I don't want to go too hard on a lot of things. I'm going to mention a couple other things. I felt like Justin Fields played the best game he's had so far as a Steeler, and that's unfortunate to say because we lost. He obviously struggled early in the game. We talked about that. He didn't feel comfortable. I don't know if that was hey, we changed the game plan last minute, or hey, I'm not comfortable with this offensive line this week, or what it was. He struggled early. Even the first drive of the second quarter, he had to delay a game that probably cost us the drive to some extent. It was tough. And then that second drive in the second quarter or second half, the fumble. He fumbled the ball on third down. We would have had to punt or kick a very, very, very long field goal. But even with that being said, that in my opinion, that's on the refs. That was a fumble, yes, but he did get control of the ball up against his chest again when he was touched before dropping the ball again. It should not have been a turnover The Minkah Fitzpatrick penalty later in the game shouldn't have been a penalty because he was easily pulling up. The commentators knew it. Everyone knew it. It sucks in games like this where I saw TJ Watt getting tackled as he was trying to get to Joe Flacco one game and no penalty called. It's hard to play against an NFL team, even any NFL team. I don't care if it's the 0-16 Browns, but it's hard to play against an NFL team and the refs. And this is one of those games where I felt like the refs were against us. And it was just unfortunate. I'm not one to blame a game on the ref, but it definitely had an impact on the game as a whole. Some drives were halted because of penalties, and some drives were extended for the Colts because of penalties. So it's just unfortunate. I do think I'm not. Let me clarify. I'm not saying the delay of game. The delay of game was on the refs. That was just we didn't seem to come out with a game plan. Like especially after halftime, how do you come out and have a delay of game? That doesn't make sense to me. I'm very confused by that. I felt like Pittsburgh could have come out and had a better game plan ready or something. I just felt very unorganized. And then later in the game, we got drives together. You know, Fields had a great drive that went 80 yards in 2 minutes and 23 seconds to make it a one-score game, to make it 27-24. The drive before that, he led the team down and had phenomenal tempo, and the team scored 24-17. The team did very well in the second half. I just am tired of waiting for a second half or late in the year to get our stuff together. I feel like this is a constant issue we are having, and I'm hoping that it gets fixed.
We got to find some plays that Justin Fields is comfortable with early in the game to get his confidence going, to get him comfortable. Because it even got to the point where in the first quarter, his pocket presence was bad.
Oh, it was so bad.
Like he was taking sacks. He was literally scrambling out of a clean pocket directly into a sack. At one point, Najee was furious with him because he had his guy blocked and he scrambled right into the guy that Najee was blocking and took a sack.
I remember seeing that play.
And it was completely unnecessary. And that's why there's 4 sacks in this game, not because the blocking was that atrocious. There were definitely some bad pass blocking moments in this game, but he took some bad sacks where he literally just scrambled into the pressure. And you've got to have a better amount of awareness in this. And it's so weird because like the second half of the game, it wasn't an issue at all. He had great pocket presence. He scrambled to open areas, reset his feet, delivered absolute dimes down the field, whether it be to Van Jefferson or we saw one to Calvin Austin III, several to George Pickens. Like he was resetting his feet and doing everything that he was taught perfectly in the second half. But in the first half, it was like everything went out the window. All coaching just went out the window, and he just was in his normal bad habits. And then he had to come to the sideline and be like reminded, hey, remember that thing we talked about this week, what you're supposed to do with your feet? Yeah, we need you to do that.
Yep.
And then he started doing it again. It's like, It's frustrating because the talent the kid has is immense, right?
Yep.
You look at the stat line from this kid from this game, and you would think Pittsburgh won.
Yep. Yeah.
You
100%.
really would. This is his best statistical game as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and it's not close.
Nope. And that
And
doesn't,
it's a shame
and it
that
doesn't
just a
fall
couple
on him.
small mistakes. Yeah, it's just a couple small mistakes, and they're not all on him. But his fumble,
again,
him losing the ball originally is on him, right?
correct.
I agree with you. He did regain possession. They ruled it a fumble. It's on him for losing it in the first place. He didn't fumble it because somebody knocked it out. He just straight up lost the ball.
Yep.
And then late in the game, taking the ball off of his helmet, he admitted to it after the game in his press conference. And
Yep.
in that situation, it's a leg stomp by him that indicates the snap is supposed to happen. He did it. The snap came. It hit him right in the face mask. Man, you can't ask for a better snap than that.
Yep.
And I think he's just trying to, like he indicated in the press conference, he was trying to get that one last look at the coverage so that he could have a good clue what was going on in the secondary before he took the snap and started the play. And I get that, but man, like, I don't know, at least get a hand up.
Yeah.
At least get a hand up so you can try to, that was the one thing Ben was really good at, is that if a ball came and he wasn't ready yet, he was good at getting a hand on it and kind of like popping it up and then catching it off of that second one so that it didn't go over his head and still getting the ball off.
Outside of
when
that
happens
that
for
Browns
Justin,
game.
it's like a broken, it's like a broken play every time. Well, that one was like 8 miles over his head. He had no chance on that.
but
Especially
okay.
a late career, Ben. He couldn't jump.
So here's my last two things that I want to talk about before we go over stats and talk about these players individually. The last two things I have is one, I think this game was still very winnable at the end. I thought the final drive was very, very, very mishandled. Mike Tomlin, as a head coach, in my opinion, should have called a timeout on that fourth down. The team was very flustered, rushed up to the line. You could tell they weren't ready. As a fan, as a mere fan, maybe I'm more attentive than the average fan, but as a fan of the game, not even a coach, I could tell, like, even my buddy Jay, you remember Jay Gluss, I was watching the game with him, and he was like, call a timeout, call a timeout, call a timeout. Like, you have to get a game plan there that gives you more than one or two options. Like, you have to have three reads on that fourth down to try and get it, and then maybe take off and run. And I felt like had we done a timeout in that situation, we could have had a better game plan than the failed fourth down conversion that actually led to the end of the game and us losing. And then another thing that Jay said, Jay was kind of like, and I know that you're going to be upset about it, but I'm upset about it a little bit, but he's like, no, I'm happy we lost. He's like, I feel like we needed this. And I agree to an extent. This very much showed glaring issues in how we start a game affects the game. Like, and I don't remember what quarterback or what coach said it. It might have been Belichick. I don't remember. But the first 5 minutes of the game and the last 5 minutes of the game are the most important 5 minutes. Also, same thing with the half. First 5 minutes of the half, last 5 minutes of the half. You got to go down and put points up early. You have to end quarters and drives and halves with points. Luckily, Pittsburgh did that early or in the first half with the 3 points, but you were down 17-3. Even if that was 10-3 or 10-17 or 14-17. Like, this game is so much different when you're not playing from that far behind, that much of a deficit. And I'm very hopeful that the coaching staff and Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith can take something away from this. And I hate that people on Facebook and social media are calling for Justin Fields to have a seat now. This is very much still Justin Fields' team, in my opinion, right now. Justin Fields did a phenomenal job in those late 2 touchdown drives of facilitating the drive, taking what he could get, and not forcing anything. But also having his eyes downfield, not looking for checkoffs, and hitting George Pickens for 2 massive passes. So, in my opinion, you still don't go from Justin Fields in this situation.
And he took the opportunities on the ground when they were there as well.
Yep.
So he was very efficient as a runner in this game also, and not just designed runs, but when it wasn't there as a passer. And early in the game, I felt feet and he was scrambling too early, like looking at his first read and just going. But later on in the game, he was going through his progressions. I'll be honest, at the second quarter, I looked at the people I was watching the game with, and I was like, man, if he doesn't turn this around, we're better off with Russ than we are. This is awful.
Yep.
I said, this is the game that's going to cost him his starting job. But I felt like he definitely redeemed himself in the second half and made it a very winnable game. And when you're down 17-3 at the half and you bring it all the way back like that and do as good of a job as he did in the second half, I feel like you still do have to roll with him, especially knowing what's on the line here, right? What's on the line is, how do you approach the next season? How do you approach the off season? Are we going to go into next season looking for a quarterback in the draft, or are we going to be rolling with Justin Fields? We need to know, man.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find out with Justin Fields sitting on the bench.
I mean, they're going to draft a quarterback next year. I just don't want it. I would, at this point, I'm still rolling with Fields. Fields is still going to improve from this, in my opinion.
And I don't think it's a given thing that they draft a quarterback next year. Maybe like a late round dude as a backup.
Yeah.
But yeah, like early, if Justin Fields continues playing well enough for Pittsburgh to win, if he keeps on winning 3 out of 4 games, there's no way in hell they draft a quarterback in the first 3 rounds. They're not taking somebody until the 4th or 5th as a backup.
No, they're drafting offensive line again, and they're drafting defensive line, because I mean, those are the
defensive,
two.
Yeah. And maybe a corner.
Maybe. I mean, listen, Beanie Bishop. We'll get to that. We'll get to all the stuff. I keep saying the one thing I want to say. I think what it's going to come down to is that second leg of the season, that second half. If Justin Fields can perform at a high level against those teams, all 6 division games, the Chiefs and the Eagles, quite frankly, even if we lose to the Chiefs, in my opinion, and Justin Fields has a good game and doesn't turn the ball over. Again, even in this game, he didn't throw an interception. He had the one fumble loss that was not his fault. Let me clarify. That wasn't a fumble loss. The fumble was his fault. I agree with you 100%. But again, he had possession, shouldn't have been a fumble. Anyways, moving on. I think how he does in the second half of the season will kind of depend on what Pittsburgh's doing long term or this off season. So let's go ahead and dive into this, James. We got a lot to talk about. And we could talk this literally all day long. Justin Fields' stat line, 22 of 34, 312 yards, 1 touchdown, took 4 sacks for a loss of 30 yards, but still one of his best games, his best game in a Steelers uniform for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
2 rushing touchdowns.
2 rushing touchdowns, and that's huge, right? So we're really looking at a 3 touchdown performance from him. He accounted for all 3 touchdowns, whether with his feet or with his arm.
Yep.
So great performance from Justin overall. Kind of how we've been talking about it the few weeks. One of our big concerns, and one of the things that he corrected last week, was there was always a couple of possible turnover worthy plays that were, hey, if this turns into a turnover, it might cost us a game. That's kind of where things came to on this one. The ball hitting him off the face mask, and then the ball that ended up being ruled a fumble. We disagree with it. Regardless, he fumbled it previous to the actual ruling part. So those are things that he still has to clean up. So that twice a game possible fumble scenario has happened 3 out of the 4 games so far.
Yep.
And then in the third game, which was the big win last week, he didn't do that once. So is he moving in the right direction? Sure, it kind of looks like it, but it's got to continue in that direction. We can't have those turnovers or big time negative plays like that, because it's just absolutely devastating when it happens. Outside of that, tons of huge things to be really excited about with Fields in this game, in my opinion. Beyond that, the running game, Najee Harris had a very bad game for Najee. Now, to give it perspective, he was getting hit at or behind the line of scrimmage almost every play and was going against a loaded box, which, if you're not a big football head like us, that means that there are more defenders than there are blockers. So there was somebody coming unblocked and hitting him every single running play. We just did not have the numbers. And the reason it was such an easy day for Cordarrelle Patterson is because they backed out when he was out there. They did not anticipate the run, or they weren't worried about the run, and he was running into wide open holes because they just weren't worried about it. They should have been. He was the better runner on the day.
Yeah.
Luckily for them, he got an ankle the second quarter or late first quarter or something, and then missed the entire second half.
Yep.
So our biggest rushing weapon was not available to us in the second half. And honestly, from what I saw from Aaron Shamklin, I don't want to see him in the next game.
No, I mean, he had one rush for 5 yards.
He's awful as a pass
Awful.
protector, man. Just got absolutely annihilated and really put Justin Fields in some bad situations because he could not pick up a blitzing linebacker.
Yeah. Justin Fields obviously
with Najee out there. Najee can handle that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I get that, but
Najee needs a break.
I get that, but you're almost better off putting this dude out there on first or second down and letting Najee take third down.
Put Connor Hayward back there. I mean, you have him.
You're better off with Connor too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At this point, I think you got to use what you got, and you got to be smart about it. You don't need to put a running back in the running back position just because he's a running back. Connor Hayward is available. Connor Hayward is there. Put Darnell Washington back there.
Or Rodney Williams. Williams would do a better job. He's a good pounds. And that's where I'm with the personnel issues in this game is I feel like Arthur Smith put some people on that field in a real bad situation where it was not likely that when you're talking about basically a practice squad center as your extra offensive lineman and a practice squad running back getting significant playing time, man, you got to do better.
Yep.
You got to have some of your better players on the field, not these guys that are back of the roster, practice squad type guys. And that's the offensive coordinator making the decisions to put those players on the field. That's not a head coaching decision. That's the offensive coordinator. Yep. So he's just got to put better quality players on the field in those situations. And if you don't have a high quality sixth offensive lineman, don't call plays for a sixth offensive lineman to be on the field. Just don't do it.
No, I agree. I think that we need to see a different running back on the team and elevated for next week, or utilize the guys you have on the team. I mean, there was a time we saw Darnell Washington motion back and was a fullback. Just put him back there next to Justin. Let him block. Mm-hmm. Listen, if you do a chip and block or a chip and a play to the flats, we saw what Darnell Washington could do. We're gonna get there. We saw it. Let's transition over real quick to the receiving room. George Pickens again with his best game of the year, 11 targets, 7 receptions, 113 yards. Had a phenomenal game, in my opinion. He just missed a touch, or he just didn't have a touchdown. That's all he was missing, and this game would have been a 10 out of 10. Pat Freiermuth, 5 catches for 57 yards and the 1 touchdown. Najee Harris, 3 for 54. That's another stat line that is underutilized. Everyone says, 13 carries for 19 yards. He had a bad game. Well, he caught the ball 3 times for 54 yards. One of them was late in the game before the Justin Fields scramble and touchdown. And he went and ran hard after that. When Najee has somewhere to go, he runs hard. But when he's getting hit at the line of scrimmage or behind, I'm sorry, you can't do anything about that.
He's got to build up momentum. He's not a quick burst dude.
No.
He has to build up momentum, and other teams know that. They know that if they hit him early, they can.
It's the same way that people play Derrick Henry. And so I'm still very much team Najee. I understand that financially they may not pay him at the end of the year. I still hope he comes back. I still hope he remains on the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see what happens. Darnell Washington, 2 catches for 31 yards. He pulled a Vance McDonald out of his hat and stiff armed a guy into the ground. It was absolutely phenomenal. And then hurdled another man. Just a phenomenal play on his part. Van Jefferson,
a better athlete than he gets credit for. Let's be real.
Oh my gosh. I've been saying that since he got drafted.
And Arthur Smith is starting to see that and starting to utilize him more, and good for Pittsburgh.
Very good. There was one time where they didn't throw him the ball in the end zone. I was just mad. He's 6'7" going up against like a 6 foot even cornerback. You get that ball high enough. As heck. Dear Lord. Van Jefferson, 2 catches for 21 yards. Cordarrelle Patterson, 2 for 19. And then Calvin Austin, the 1 for 17, which came on a really big third down conversion. Calvin Austin had himself a game. We'll get to the punt return stuff earlier or later as well. But overall, the wide receiver core did very well. I don't think outside of the George Pickens fumble, there was nothing in this game from any of these guys that I was like, oh, I wish they would have done that, or oh my gosh, they didn't do this, or they all played very, very well. Wide receiver, running backs, and tight ends. So,
the receiving core in general, running included, had a nice game. It really did. So I think it's a step in the right direction on that. The best game from George Pickens though so far this year, obviously minus that one fumble.
Yep.
But he's been good about cleaning that stuff up, right? When he makes a mistake, he cleans it up. He doesn't make that again. And I think, honestly, we can't give Pat Freiermuth enough credit for that touchdown because he should have been stopped short, man.
Yeah. Oh, my
gosh.
gosh.
He should have been in, and he just drove his legs and somehow kept his legs off the ground as he was stretching over for the touchdown. It's just an incredible effort play by Pat Freiermuth to get that touchdown. And that's why you gave him the money, right? That's why he got that big deal, because he is capable of that. And I think if he continues that, you're going to see a little bit more respect put on Pat Freiermuth's name in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Moving to the offensive line, again, I thought early and often the blocking wasn't there. There's something to be said about, Justin Fields not feeling the pressure correctly, making it look worse than what it was, taking sacks he didn't need to take, stuff like that. I also thought that there's an aspect that, and you can look at it from the personnel aspect, like you've talked about. The run blocking wasn't quite there early in the game either. The run, I mean, it's a very injured and beaten up offensive line. We basically have 5 guys that are gone and out for season that either would have started or would have spent some time starting. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they manage this offensive line moving forward. I'm hoping that the blocking does improve next week. This group has only been together for a week now. So hopefully they play a little bit better next week. But again, I thought the blocking from Zach Frazier's one of the best centers in the league already, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's had a phenomenal year so far. I couldn't tell how good Spencer Anderson did outside of the penalty. I felt like he got beat inside more than he did outside. But again, and a lot of that was on running plays. They're trying to stuff the middle like that. So I don't know.
Yeah. When they're trying to block 2 guys at the same time, that's a very difficult task
Very
for
difficult.
even an all-pro,
So I don't know what they're going to do moving forward.
And I think the musical chairs up front is starting to catch up to him too. It's a very important thing to have good chemistry with the guy next to you and knowing what that guy is going to do when a scenario comes up, exactly where he's going to be, how he's going to respond, so you can respond appropriately to stunts and twists and guys that are double team situations. And it's just difficult because in this game, like we said earlier, James Daniels, starting right guard, who has been very good this season. I thought the first game was kind of shaky, but he's been excellent since then. Goes down with an Achilles tear early in the game, first or second quarter, I forget which. At that point, Spencer Anderson now had to insert himself as the right guard. Mason McCormick's already making his first professional start at left guard. So now you got a guy at right guard that hasn't played that all season long, a guy at left guard who's making his very first start as a 4th-round rookie, the center who's only on his 4th game as a rookie, and a right tackle who's been flip-flopping as to whether he's right or left and not sure where he's going to play. The only thing that's been a constant in this offensive line so far has been Dan Moore on the left-hand side, and Dan had some bad snaps in this game too where he got beat around the edge. But there's just some communication stuff, even with the offensive line versus the quarterback. There was one situation where the Colts had like 7 guys coming on a blitz. Pittsburgh did not have any running backs to block. It was 5 wide receivers or 5 receivers up on the line anyway. So it's just their 5 offensive linemen. Broderick Jones pointed to the defender outside of him to his right, indicating to Justin Fields, this guy is yours. We don't have anybody to block him. We're going to be taking care of everybody to the left. This guy's coming for you. And he just didn't account for it.
Nope.
And was surprised to be hit by him when Broderick Jones it's as easy as day to see that super long arm pointing out and saying, hey, Justin, this guy's all you, man. We can't get him. There aren't enough of us.
Yep.
So it's even stuff like that maybe he's just a little too confident in his ability to shake people, as to where instead in that situation, there needs to be a hot read. If I know that I'm going to have somebody coming in like that, completely unblocked, I need to have somebody who's on a slant, on a quick out, something that I know I can get rid of the ball in a second and a half, 2 seconds, because I don't have a 3rd second. He's coming completely unblocked.
Yep. Or maybe it's honestly just a matter of changing. I mean, kill. If you got someone that you can't man up and you got to change the play completely. I don't know what needs to fix there. I'm hoping that they spend a lot of time in the film room this week. I don't think outside of the offensive line, this team needs a lot of practice together on the field. Justin Fields and these receivers are having a field day when they get in, no pun intended, when they get in rhythm and get moving, but the offensive line just needs to kind of get the act together and get on sync with each other. I'm very curious, James. You just made me think about this, talking about the chemistry. Average, if you went back and looked at all the Super Bowl winning teams over the years, I wonder what the combined years of experience together those offensive lines have, because I feel like that's an undervalued or underappreciated thing in the NFL. So I'm curious. Maybe I'll do some studying this week. Who knows? But again, I think a lot of time in the film room, realizing what they did wrong, what reads we didn't make, what we saw, what we didn't see, how to visualize it in game, and then just go out and do some walkthroughs. Just visualize things. Just have the defense call a play, go out and see if Justin Fields and the offensive line can figure out what they're doing, and then have Justin Fields audible in those situations. Let him have some walkthrough time in those kinds of things. I think that could benefit him very well. James, you want to go over to the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, let's switch over to the defense. There are a few good points in this defense from this game. And honestly, it starts in the safety room. Deshaun Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick both had real nice games. The one thing you don't want to see is your safeties leading the team in tackles, and they did again, which just means way too many plays are getting past the front seven and into the secondary. Hats off to these guys for being excellent tacklers. I'm with you on the personal foul that they called on Minkah Fitzpatrick. Never should have been. And honestly, the biggest indication that should not have been is the color commentator in this game was Adam Archuleta. If you've ever listened to any games that Adam Archuleta has called that's a Steelers game, he does not like the Steelers, and he makes it very clear. In fact, there were some calls that were blatantly bad early in the game that he did not want to admit were bad, but he wouldn't admit that it was a good call either. He just kind of stayed neutral, and he was very cautious with his words. On that hit by Minkah Fitzpatrick, he got very animated that it was a horrible call.
Yep.
And maybe it's partially because he played the safety position too, but it was very obvious that Minkah pulled up. In fact, he pulled his arms back, and it was just like a collision, and he bounced off of the guy, and he's way bigger than that receiver. That was a small, 180-pound
If
receiver.
He wanted to hit him, he would have hit him.
He would have destroyed him if he was really trying to hit him. He tried to pull up. There was not enough time to pull up. And for them to throw that flag, and I think it was like a third down too.
It was second and 10, but it would have been 3rd and 10.
Yeah, you just can't throw that flag. It's an awful flag to throw, and that's costly. That's not on Minkah. Minkah did everything correctly in that play.
Yep.
So we just needed to see more help from the other guys. We had Dante Jackson missing tackles out there. We had Joey Porter Jr. dropping interceptions.
Oh my gosh!
It's just. The corners did not help the safeties enough in this game.
Nope.
Their play was just not good enough. We still haven't seen a splash play from Beanie Bishop other than getting after the quarterback.
Yep.
As a coverage guy, I'm not impressed with Beanie Bishop at this point.
I feel,
now,
and I wish
games into a season, but
I really wish that I could see the 22 tape to see what the teams actually look like, because oftentimes I assume that we played in zone coverage or we were playing in man, and it's hard to tell when you're watching it on TV unless they show a replay and you kind of get to see how the defense moves with the offense. But I felt like a lot of the times we got beat, we were playing in these soft zone coverages. And a lot of 3rd down conversions came from everyone dropping back in their zone and then them just sitting in the middle of it. I felt like every single 3rd down conversion was like that. And Minkah
they were manipulating the defense too and getting wide receivers on linebacker those zones. And as athletic as Peyton Wilson is, you can't ask him to cover a wide receiver and expect it to turn out well.
No, you can't at all. And so I'm just curious to see if there's a different stance on and maybe that was a game change that they did because Joe Flacco came in. Maybe they had a different game plan for Anthony Richardson. I don't know. Again, there's a chance that hurt Pittsburgh. There's a chance that we, had a game plan for Anthony Richardson. And then when he went out, Joe Flacco came in and torched us. So who knows what the game plan was or what changed after that injury happened. But I really felt like they took advantage of the zone. And like you said, those corners were getting ripped apart left and right. And Joey Porter should have had a pick. Dante Jackson should have made that tackle. Those are game changing plays. Those change the outcome of the game. So
And they even called Joey Porter for another pass interference in this game on a situation where, from the angles that I saw on the TV tape, he never even made contact with the receiver.
nope.
So
No, the guy ran in. If
that's
anything,
a
the guy
tough
ran into
one.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he never even reached an arm out. So I was like, what in the world are we calling on this one? But we need to start seeing some INTs from these corners, man. We gotta start getting some turnovers. The secondary is not getting the turnovers that we need at this stage in the game. And that's just a difficult reality to look at. Now, as far as getting after the quarterback, that started happening a little bit more specifically again in the second half than in the
Yep.
first half. But Cam Hayward was all over the quarterback in this game, right? He got credit for 1 sack total, but it was 2 half sacks. Almost had another one where it would have been a full sack, but Joe Flacco was able to stay upright just long enough to get rid of the ball.
Yep.
Um, I thought, as far as a pass rusher, this was Cam's best game so far on the season, and it's encouraging to see him get better as the season goes along. And this was the best offensive lineman that he's gone against all season as well. Quentin Nelson is an all-pro, and he is a first-team all-pro
Yep.
every single year. And as a pass rusher, he couldn't slow down Cam Hayward.
Nope.
So that is a great sign for things to come on Cam. And a lot of this, like, it's frustrating seeing a lack of production from both Nick Herbig and TJ Watt in this game, but some of that was them getting up the arc. As we've been talking about, the more you get that pressure from these guys coming up the arc, it forces the quarterback to step forward, and he steps forward into the chest of whoever's getting the best pass rush in the middle. And it was Cam Hayward's over and over, right? Larry Ogunjobi got a half a sack also because of that, but Cam Hayward was over and over collapsing the pocket and capitalizing and hitting the quarterback. So we just got to get a second guy to do it, man.
Yep.
Keanu Benton isn't really making that happen yet much. And Larry Ogunjobi, this was the first splash that he had in 4 games, and it's just a half sack. So we got to get a second guy doing that in the middle, and then it's going to start getting to the point where you see 7 or 8 sacks in a game.
Yep. I'm hoping that the defensive front can get moving, get going. Cam Hayward, again, like you said, had a monster day. Larry Ogunjobi got to the quarterback. Looking at the outside linebackers, TJ Watt, unfortunately, like you said earlier in the show, they ran away from him the whole time. TJ Watt couldn't get a freaking stat line going if he wanted to because he was never given a chance. And then on the times that he had a chance, he was getting held and not being called. And I'm not trying to rip into the refs, but I'm tired of seeing games that are so easily influenced by the refs' actions. The horrible play call on the unnecessary roughness on Minka, the missed fact that Justin Fields had control of the ball when he was hit again and then dropped the ball after the initial fumble. And then even on top of that, TJ Watt was getting tackled to the ground on at least 1 or 2 plays that I saw where it easily could have been called a holding call. And those were big plays that they threw the ball downfield and got some yards out of. So TJ Watt, unfortunately, no numbers. Peyton Wilson had 6 tackles on the game. Not Larry Ogunjobi. Nick Herbig had 2 tackles on the game. He was kind of shut down for the most part. Just unfortunate to see how this all played out. James, you want to look at that middle linebacker room? Landon Roberts had 3 tackles. Peyton Wilson had 6. I don't know what more you want. Patrick Queen had 7 with 1 tackle for loss. It just felt quiet on the defense.
Yeah, there's not enough penetration coming from the middle linebacker. You saw a lot more tackles filling up the stat sheet.
Yep.
But it's kind of like what used to be my gripe with Larry Foote. Larry Foote got a lot of tackles, but he was getting tackles as people were driving past him and he was dragging them to the ground. He wasn't driving people backwards. That's kind of what we saw in this game is the middle linebackers are getting some tackles, but they're not like penetrating and hitting the running back behind the line. They're reacting and tackling someone as a lineman's driving them into the ground. We need to see more stack and shed. That was one of the things I was concerned about Peyton Wilson coming into the league is he has short arms, especially for a guy that's 6'4". His arms were not even 32 inches long, which is a red flag for a middle linebacker as far as being able to stack and shed an offensive lineman. That's just difficult when they have longer arms than you to get them off of you once they're on you.
Yep.
Patrick Queen, kind of a smaller middle linebacker as well. Landon Roberts has just not been a significant impact on any game so far. So We just need to see more from them as far as blitzing and attacking the lanes instead of waiting to see where someone comes.
Yep.
I need to see people penetrating through like Ryan Shazier used to and hitting a guy like a second after he gets the dang handoff.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing I'm waiting for to see from these middle linebackers, and it hasn't been there yet. So if you're not going to do that, then I need to start seeing some more contribution in the passing game, disrupting balls that are thrown over the middle, getting some interceptions, that kind of stuff. I'm waiting for impact plays from this middle linebacker group, and we're just not seeing it yet.
Could you have imagined this Steelers defense with Ryan Shazier and TJ Watt?
Lord.
Could you imagine?
We got robbed of that, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got robbed of that with them and Minka and Cam Hayward.
This defense would be better than it already is.
If things turn out different for Stephon Tuitt,
if things turn out different for Devin Bush,
if that scenario happens a year previous and we retain Javon Hargrave because of it, because they let Javon Hargrave go because they knew they were paying Stephon Tuitt and they couldn't afford to pay all three guys in the room.
Yep. There's a lot
They've been searching ever since Hargrave left and Tuitt retired. They've been searching for that dominant number and still haven't found it.
Yep.
I mean, how many draft picks, how many free agents have we brought in and still can't find the running mate for Cam Hayward that Stephon Tuitt was?
Yeah. Cam Hayward's got time for it. So we already talked about this secondary. James, Minka, 9 tackles, Deshaun Elliott, 12. Joey Porter, 4. He technically could have had 2 picks in the game. Dante Jackson with the missed tackle, 3 tackles. Obviously, we also talked about Beanie Bishop with the half sack that he shared with Cam Hayward. Just a lot happened this game. A lot of things. Actually, did he share that with Cam Hayward or Ogunjobi? I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, my guess is Cam.
Yeah, because he has. Yep, it makes sense.
Yeah, because otherwise it would have to be.
Yeah. But just overall, again, the slow start on both sides of the balls, or both sides of the ball is what cost us this game, in my opinion. You can't go the first quarter or the first half with 3 points and let up 17. In this day and age in the NFL, it's just not going to work out very well. But again, impressed that Justin Fields did make the comeback. Calvin Austin, switching over to special teams, Calvin Austin had the one big punt return for 30 yards. Unfortunately, that was the same drive that Justin Fields wound up losing the ball to a fumble. Boz still for president, 1 for 1 on field goals from 50 yards, and then 3 for 3 on the extra points. And then Carlos Waitman, 3 punts for 103 yards. Not a horrible game for him. It wasn't bad. I just felt
that's a horrible average.
It's a horrible average, but some of those punts were on shorter fields. I mean, we were downing them inside the 20 on 2 of those 3, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, that's correct. But man, you still want to see a higher number than that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Nothing you can do if it's a short field, though.
Yeah. The one thing I want to say, going back to the Justin Fields thing, big shout out to Alex Kozora at Steelers Depot and Rich Eisen on the Eisman show. Eisman said today on his show, he said Justin Fields yesterday, 312 yards passing, a touchdown pass, and he ran 2 in. A passer rating of 104. He's the 9th quarterback in the NFL history to have a game with 300 or more passing yards, 1 or more passing touchdown, 50 or more rushing yards, and 2 or more rushing touchdowns. It's the 10th total occurrence because one of those guys did it twice, and his name is Steve Young. Justin Fields out here doing Steve Young things. Rich Eisman is on the side of the QB controversy is over, and I'm with him. I think at this point you got to stick with Justin Fields. We talked about it before the show. I just excuse me. I just want to kind of emphasize that because Justin Fields, in my opinion, it's his job. It's his job right now. He's leading the team very well when he's comfortable, when he plays well. And he's not playing bad when he's not playing well. It's just a few small mental errors that can easily be fixed and easily be taken over. He still hasn't thrown in outside the 1 interception last week. He still hasn't thrown a bad ball that led to an interception, in my opinion. So that's my opinion.
Not making a lot of mistakes. Still got to clean up these fumble opportunities, right? The snap exchanges that are still becoming an issue. But I'm with you. It's starting to get a little bit more promising as the weeks go on. We go from kicking 6 field goals to here we are week 4. We've got 3 touchdowns. So we're steps going in the right direction, a few more points going on the board. It was just an uncharacteristic, very poor game from the defense.
Yep.
I'm a little concerned about some of these injuries piling up, Cody. So let's talk about this, right?
Yep.
So James Daniels goes out in this game with an Achilles tear. This is a devastating injury when we're already down Troy Fautanu for the entire season. We're down Nate Herbig for the entire year. He can't come back. He's not eligible to. We already had Dylan Cook go on the IR early in the season. He's eligible to come back.
Yep.
We had Isaac Siamalu already on the injured list early on in the year. He's working his way back. Some are saying there's a chance of him playing this upcoming week. We really need it now, man, because that's 5 offensive linemen either down with significant injuries that cost them the entire season or could possibly cost them the whole season, or went to the IR, which is at least 4 weeks.
Yep.
That's devastating, man. And we're talking about every position, 2 tackles, 2 guards, and a center. Like, that's a lot for any team to overcome. And Pittsburgh had some good quality depth, but now we're really stretching it, man. You're getting to the very last bit of guys that are high quality backups that can still step in and be okay. So we got to start seeing some of these guys get healthy. I like hearing the news about Sayamalu possibly coming back.
Yep.
Dylan Cook will be eligible to come off of healthy or not. I have no idea. I haven't heard anything on that yet, but we really need it at this point, man, because we need some more bodies out there that are capable of making that one-on-one block with a middle linebacker on 4th and 1, because Ryan McCollum ain't it, man.
Yep.
You want to talk about the Cordarrelle Patterson injury to the ankle? I'm about that too, with Jaylen Warren already out.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Warren's obviously out. We don't know for sure how long he's going to be out. That's a big, I mean, that was a 2-headed to potentially going to be 3-headed backfield this year that was going to be very potent. And Jaylen Warren brings in a different kind of running style from Najee, and it typically complements it very well. Well, Jaylen's out now. Cordarrelle Patterson is out. And then we saw Champlin come in, and you can't have a running back there that is not able to pass block. It is just a sign of either, hey, come blitz us, because you're either going to get a good shot at the quarterback or you're going to stop the run in the backfield. We need to figure out another running back option. I'm hoping Ward could be a potential. We got to see him run very hard in the preseason. I'm excited to see them hopefully use somebody else next week for that second running back position and third running back position. Because if Cordarrelle Patterson isn't back, I mean, you're only going to have him and technically Connor Hayward, which you haven't lined up at the running back position anyways, available. So we'll see what happens there. And at this point, James, I'm also curious. Pittsburgh's been talked about being in the trade market for another wide receiver. At this point, should we be looking at offensive line? Should we be looking at running back? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd almost be more worried about running back than offensive. Sayamalu coming back in the hopefulness of possibly getting Dylan Cook back soon as well. That's the drastically needed reinforcements that this offensive line has, because there are no longer any high quality backups. I don't consider Ryan McCollum one. I don't consider this offensive tackle that they just signed this last week one. You're out of high quality backups. It's just not a thing that's remaining on the team. So we got to get Sayamalu back. We got to get Dylan Cook back. That being said, I'm very concerned about this injury to Cordarrelle Patterson, because the rumors are going around that Jaylen Warren's knee injury is a little more significant than they're letting out, and they're not expecting him to be healthy enough to play next week. So if Patterson isn't healthy for next week also, man, are we in trouble at the running back position if Najee is the only healthy guy in the room, and Champlin just did not look like he is ready for the NFL.
Nope.
It just didn't look like an NFL-worthy guy back there. So got to figure something out. I would look to see what's going on the waiver wire this week. Does anybody have to make some roster moves, or they have to start adjusting for injuries on their own team, where maybe they have a back of the roster running back where they were not able to hang on to him? Because Pittsburgh might need to make a move this week to improve that room with the injuries to both Warren and Patterson. Very concerning for me.
Yeah. Last I checked, Boston Scott is still unsigned. So who knows?
Maybe that's the move.
Maybe that's a signing that needs to be done this week. With that being said, that's going to wrap up the show today. A lot of things going on in the Steelers world, and it's going to be another big test next week as we take on the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday night, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Sunday night or Monday night, one of the two.
Yeah. I want to say it's either a 4 o'clock or a 7 o'clock or something.
I know it's a night game because I was going to go to it. I just
Okay.
don't remember if it was Sunday or Monday.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we can't thank you guys enough for being here. Hopefully you guys can comment, let us know what you thought of the game, where you thought the weaknesses were, where are the growth points and stuff like that. We're going to be talking about that a lot next week. Again, pre-game show or preview show will be Friday or Saturday. Be on the lookout for that. Again, hopefully big things coming in the world of Steelers by the Lake this year. Don't forget to check out Hardcore Sports Network on YouTube. That is someone who partnered with us for this season. We're going to see how that goes. Those guys are really good. James joins them on Sunday mornings for a pick'em show where they go through and pick the teams that they think are going to win that game. If you want to check that out, the link will be in the description on YouTube. Again, thank you guys so much for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to follow and like on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. It don't cost you a thing. Don't forget the 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Make James here really happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.
Steelers by the lake. Now it's on. Wait for you, I'm getting time. Steelers by the lake. Now it's time.